I'm Linda Benkin. I'm director of Alaska Longline Fishermen's Association. I've also been a commercial fisherman for 30 years, fishing for halibut and blackcod, as well as trolling for salmon. I served 9 years on the North Pacific Fishery Management Council and was very engaged prior to my time on the council, as well as while I was on the council, in developing the halibut sablefish individual fishing quota, or IFQ, catch year program. My role in particular was focused on developing the provisions to protect the small boat fleet and the ongoing participation of owner-operated, independent, small boat, community-based fishermen. When we started working on the IFQ program, we had the benefit of talking to a policy analyst who had worked in New Zealand for years with development of their program. And he told us up front that IFQ programs did not favor small boats, that they favored people with access to capital, and that they would lead to consolidation. We understood we needed to probably reduce the fleet somewhat, but we also understood that consolidating too much would be bad for the industry, bad for the communities, and that we wanted to make sure in the future there was always a place for the small boat fleet in both the halibut and sablefish fishery. But I would say that if you don't have provisions that require the person who owns the quota to be on the boat, number one, you can't claim the stewardship principles that are always claimed for catch year programs. Because if that person with a long-term investment in that resource is on the boat, they are going to take care of small fish, and they are going to be paying attention to trends in the fishery and how that feeds into long-term management policy. But if that person is sitting on the beach and they're drawing 60 to 70% of the rents for the resource, which is what we're seeing up here in some cases, the people running the boat only make their money by turning over a lot of gear. Some of them, they're going to be responsible anyway, because that's the kind of people they are. But we are seeing increasing number of people that are simply out there under a lot of pressure to run a lot of gear really fast, and they're not being careful of how bycatch is handled or how small fish are handled. So there's that piece, the stewardship, and there's also the piece of you really cannot control consolidation unless you tie the quota to living, breathing people who are on the boat and really accountable. Once you uncouple the quota share from the people who do the fishing, that quota shareholder can live anywhere, and you lose that investment in the community. You lose those rents coming back into the community, the resource rents, and being invested in the community assets, whether that's getting engaged with schools or local policy, but even buying groceries, buying fuel, all the things that you want to see happening in your communities to keep the community healthy. I think it was clear to me that those provisions were needed. There were a lot of people who fought them. The economists will always tell you that IFQ programs favor efficiency, and while efficiency is a good thing, even under a catch year program, they're wrong about that. IFQs favor people with access to capital, unless you are very, very careful in how you craft the programs. And actually, I would say even if you're careful, they favor people with access to capital, and you have to carve out a niche for the people who are community-based, small boat, maybe with not very good access to capital. We wrote our program with that real goal of maintaining an owner-operated fleet. There was a compromise made in the 11th hour that allowed people who initially received quota to use a hired skipper to harvest their quota. But anybody who purchased quota had to be a living, breathing, real person and had to be on the boat when that quota was harvested. We thought by doing that we would protect or maintain the existing character of the fleet, which is 90% to 95% owner-operated at the time. some of the other provisions in our program that have been critically important to maintaining the small boat fleet were vessel size classes. So quota that was earned by boats that were under 35 feet were issued as D-class specified shares that can only be harvested by boats under 35 feet. And then there's another size class, this is for the halibut fishery, but from 35 to 60 feet. And again, those can only be fished on boats between 35 and 60 feet. And then a class for over 60 on a separate, very small class for freezer shares. So in that way, we ensured we would maintain a diverse fleet in terms of size. We've always said from skiffs to halibut schooners, and we do still have that. Some of those size classes have been collapsed in areas to the west, and you see it immediately in the loss of affordable entry level. But those pieces have been important to keep maintaining community engagement in the fisheries. People can buy small amounts of quota for a D-class small boat and then stair-step their way in.